This is what the original Xbox looked like in 2001. It's a far cry from what we see today, with its almost otherworldly design. In fact, that's exactly what Microsoft intended. It was made to look alien, exciting, and powerful. If you fell asleep next to this screen, there was a good chance you'd wake up to the sounds of inhuman voices, and a wailing ambience that feels more at home in the depths of Subnautica. The PlayStation 2 also had a very unique feel to it, from the futuristic startup screen to the menu, with these floating objects representing each game. Of course, it wasn't just consoles that used to look like this. The term Y2K, more broadly, describes a range of unique, strange, and downright disturbing aesthetic styles from the early 2000s, a time when tech was still an unchained collection of zeros and ones that could fly around your house at lightspeed, but somehow couldn't run Crysis. Anyway, let's dive in.
Why is everything chrome?
Everything is chrome in the future!
Coming at a similar time to the obsession with making everything see-through, we'll get to that later, there was a trend of metallic, silver technology and media. You might remember this from things like the Nintendo DS, flip phones and digital cameras. It was usually achieved with a curved chrome-plated plastic, a great example being this version of the PlayStation 3 controller, or even an earlier concept for it. However, if you grew up around the time, you probably recognise it more from music videos. People love to set them in these weirdly abstract and futuristic environments, likely to show off their superior CGI budget. This is captured perfectly in Busta Rhymes and Janet Jackson's What's It Gonna Be from 1998, where everything down to their teeth is covered in this fluid chrome plating. Album covers got a similar treatment, with the same blue-tinted silver objects being prevalent in design. A lot of people refer to this trend in general as Chromcore. The main distinction between this and aesthetics like Cybercore is the use of less diverse colour palettes and gradients. However, I believe the main reason for their popularity in the 2000s is pretty much identical. With effects like this rapidly emerging and wowing audiences across the world, there was a deep fascination with rendering reflective 3D objects. So they were linked with actual advancements in technology at the time, but also allowed for the creation of these exciting interpretations of the future. For example, you'll notice a lot of images associated with Cybercore are just cool renders created through software like Bryce 3D. Interestingly, these designs weren't limited to technology and media. Architectural movements like blobism made use of these rounded chrome objects as well. Have a look at these seats from a New York jeans store in 1997, or this prediction of household appliances in 2020. If you never had a controller like this, I'm sorry, because another huge trend in the early 2000s was these translucent, colourful casings for devices. Of course, this design choice wasn't necessarily anything new, having been around since the 80s and things like the Game Boy Advance. However, it was extremely popular. If you have $500 spare now, you can see it yourself in the original Halo Edition Xbox with its dark see-through green. The PlayStation 2 even had an ocean blue version that came equipped with a translucent controller. I remember loving tech like this, and the way you could look inside and pretend you knew what the hell any of the switches and wires were doing. Other prominent examples are the iMac G3s, and the whole slogan of "Sorry, no beige." This of course refers to a series of advertisements put out with the iMacs in 1999, to accompany the 13 or so widely different coloured casings. Apple, like many others, used these sorts of colourful designs to distance themselves from the previous generations of technology, and capitalise on the hype around futurism. Today, this transparent type of tech is more of a novelty, and I associate it more with lower quality hardware that's trying to appear more interesting than it actually is. That being said, I wouldn't be upset if Xbox started shipping consoles with controllers like these again. Naturally, this brings us to the aesthetics of gaming in the late 90s and early 2000s. Before the era of endless boxes and panels, a lot of UIs would take on a more adventurous and, at times, surreal form. I've already mentioned the obvious examples of Xbox and PlayStation 2, but you can look a bit closer at games themselves. Halo CE is a great example, with its chromes and blues giving the menu a unique, futuristic feel. Hot Wheels Velocity on PlayStation 2 is another, drawing from a similar colour palette and style of text. These sorts of designs also translated into a number of different widgets for Windows devices, particularly the media player. I've seen the original one from Halo 2 pop up again, as well as this awesome Xbox theme for Windows XP. Something else I've noticed recently is a fascination with showcases in stores from the 2000s, especially those around the original Xbox and PlayStations. Take a look at this, the first and only example of an in-person, physical PlayStation store. Before closing in 2009, this shop was home to all of the latest games and consoles, with its curved architecture and futuristic design. Another cool example is this Xbox booth at a 2001 Tokyo Game Show. I love the cases full of Xboxes and various controllers, all lit by an alien green glow. The booths of today are a bit different, opting for cleaner, glossier, and more minimal displays. There are also a lot of advertisements that follow the same aesthetic principles. You'll note similarities across images like these, having almost psychedelic swirls, patterns, and gradients in the background, and chrome emblems and text. They were made to be edgy and attention-grabbing, much like the design of games and consoles themselves. Dubbed after a 2001 book of the same name, Metalheart can be described as an edgier version of aesthetics like cybercore. A lot of the widgets and designs I just mentioned fall under this category, featuring abstract, jagged, and metallic shapes. The images you'll see associated with it feel very mechanical and otherworldly. Reaching its peak popularity around 2001, a lot of later designs were likely influenced by the aesthetics in The Matrix, inspiring digital artists and communities like DeviantArt. Metalheart would ultimately fall into obscurity long before the 2010s, and the emergence of aesthetics like Fruitiger Aero. The aesthetic called Gen X Soft Club is probably my favourite one in this video, and a style you likely didn't know had been given a name. It's essentially a softer representation of Y2K and 90s futurism, characterised by cool colour schemes, skylines, and blurred, distorted graphics. Looking at images like these, you'll probably notice some other common stylistic elements. A lot of them use a technique called the Lomo effect, a method of analog cross-processing that gives them their soft visuals. You can see it more in album covers like this, and even the cover art of games like Dead or Alive 2. Additionally, a lot of settings across the Mirror's Edge titles give off a very similar feel, especially when looking at office spaces and urban design, showing that the style is still somewhat inspirational today. Now, it wouldn't be a Y2K video if I didn't touch on some of the fashion-related aesthetics. Today, when people use the term Y2K, they are often referring to a bunch of different clothing styles from the early 2000s, which have been divided up into a lot of different categories. I've touched on this in an earlier video, but one of the most prominent is McBling. This encompasses the trend of rhinestone-studded flip phones, hot pinks, silvers, and golds. Basically anything a Brat stole would be sold wearing at the time. Common themes are animal print clothing, slogan t-shirts, and low-rise jeans. Today you'll spot it in TikTok hashtags or collages of various pinks and metallic items. Another distinct style is known as 2K1. A lot of this revolves around denim outfits and clothing that incorporates the American flag. Throwback jerseys are another common thread, alongside low-rise jeans, similar to McBling. It can also be seen in music videos, often associated with pieces like Can't Deny It from 2001. Nowadays, the term Y2K has become pretty ambiguous. It originally referred to a software problem known as the Y2K bug, which I'm sure you've heard more than enough about online. It's become more known now as simply a general name for a number of distinctly 2000s design aesthetics, which can be broken down into useful categories. In answering the question of why it looked the way it did, a lot of it can be boiled down to brands trying to capitalise on the excitement for the new millennium, and the promises of technological advancements. People were more likely to buy into a console that felt alien and futuristic, or products with interesting shapes and a slick coating of chrome. Additionally, as digital art became more accessible and the software more powerful, the natural thing to do was to show it off with complex renders or textures in music videos. Anyway, that's all we've got time for today. Join the Discord through the link in the description if that's your kind of thing, and subscribe for more content just like this. This has been Extrament, and I'll see you in the next one.
I'm sorry, little kids, but I'm a killer clown today. I could say bullets are gonna spray. I'm from Brooklyn. That's alright. But let me just say I like to get close and personal.